What if I told you that some of the most reliable cars ever built are also the cheapest ones to buy right now? Not cheap like a base-spec economy sedan with crank windows and a prayer. Cheap like a car that originally cost $90,000 sitting on a used lot with a price tag that would embarrass a budget hatchback. That's not a hypothetical. That's actually happening. Right now. In dealerships and private listings all over the country. And most buyers walk right past these cars because they see the badge, they see the nameplate, and they assume the worst. But here's what those buyers are missing. Depreciation doesn't care about quality. It doesn't care about engineering. It doesn't care whether a car was built to run 200,000 miles or fall apart at 50. Depreciation is driven by perception, by fashion, by whatever the market decided was desirable this year versus 5 years ago. Which means when a luxury car goes out of style, when the next generation arrives, when a brand loses its moment in the spotlight, prices collapse. Sometimes dramatically, sometimes almost comically. And that's exactly where the opportunity hides. Because some of those cars that fell out of fashion, they were engineered brilliantly, built with components designed to last for decades, tested to standards that most mainstream vehicles never even approach. The prestige faded, the price followed, but the engineering stayed exactly where it was. Today we're looking at 5 luxury cars that depreciation turned into absurd bargains. 5 vehicles where someone else absorbed the financial loss so you don't have to. 5 cars that prove the smartest purchase in the luxury segment is almost never the newest one. Let's start by addressing the thing that keeps most buyers away from used luxury cars in the first place. Maintenance costs. It's a legitimate concern. Some luxury vehicles, particularly certain European brands with complex turbocharged engines, proprietary electronics, and parts that seem specifically designed to be expensive, can be genuinely painful to own once the warranty expires. Those fears aren't invented. There are horror stories, real ones. But here's what the conversation almost always misses. Not every luxury car is built that way. Some manufacturers approach the luxury segment with a completely different philosophy. Instead of chasing the cutting edge with experimental engineering and complicated forced induction systems, they built luxury around refinement, around durability, around the kind of powertrain that a mechanic could service without a $6,000 diagnostic tool and 3 weeks of training. And some of these manufacturers took it even further. They shared platforms, engines, and components with mainstream vehicles that had already proven themselves over millions of miles and decades of real-world use. Which means the luxury badge on the hood was attached to mechanical DNA that had been stress-tested long before it ever wore premium trim. The result is a category of used luxury vehicle that almost nobody talks about correctly. Cars that depreciated for reasons that have nothing to do with how they were built. Cars that lost value because of perception, not performance. And cars that now represent some of the most remarkable value propositions in the entire used car market. Here's where it gets really interesting. Number 5 on this list is a flagship sedan that most people completely overlook. And that oversight has quietly made it one of the best used car purchases available right now. The Lexus LS 460. When this car arrived on the market, it cost more than $70,000. In some configurations, significantly more. It was positioned as a direct competitor to the Mercedes S-Class and the BMW 7 Series. And it delivered. Whisper quiet cabin, rear seat comfort that bordered on absurd, a level of fit and finish that made some European competitors feel slightly embarrassed about their panel gaps. But here's the part that matters most if you're thinking about buying one today. The LS 460 was built around a naturally aspirated V8 engine. No turbochargers, no intercoolers. No forced induction system adding layers of complexity and potential failure points. Just a large, refined, high-displacement engine designed to deliver power smoothly and last an extremely long time. That engine is widely regarded among independent mechanics and long-term owners as one of the most durable luxury powertrains ever produced. Not one of the most durable Japanese engines. One of the most durable luxury powertrains. Full stop. And because Lexus designed this car with long-term ownership in mind, maintenance costs remain far more manageable than most European competitors at a similar used price point. You're not hunting for proprietary parts. You're not paying dealer-only labor rates for basic service intervals. What you are getting is a car that once competed with the most prestigious sedans in the world for a price that, today, might be less than a well-equipped mid-size family sedan. The depreciation on this car doesn't reflect what it is. It reflects the fact that luxury buyers moved on, and that's your advantage. Number 4 on this list is a car that many people genuinely forgot existed, which is remarkable because when it was released, it was positioned as a serious contender in the premium luxury sedan segment. The Acura RLX. This car had everything working against it in terms of market success. The styling was conservative at a time when luxury buyers wanted drama. The Acura brand, despite its engineering credentials, struggled to shake perceptions that it sat one tier below true luxury. And the marketing never quite managed to communicate what the RLX actually was. Which is a shame, because what the RLX actually was, and still is a remarkably well-engineered luxury sedan built on the same fundamental principles that made Honda one of the most trusted automotive manufacturers in the world. Let that sink in for a moment. You're looking at a car with Honda-level mechanical reliability wrapped in genuine luxury appointments. A quiet ride, a composed chassis, features that were genuinely competitive with far more expensive alternatives at the time of its release. The sales failure created something predictable and something useful. Extreme depreciation. The kind of depreciation that happens when a car simply doesn't capture the market's imagination, regardless of its actual quality. Today, used RLX examples can be found at prices that seem almost disconnected from the engineering they represent. And because the underlying mechanical philosophy traces directly back to Honda's proven reliability record, long-term ownership costs remain impressively low. Someone else paid for the prestige of buying it new. Someone else absorbed the depreciation curve. You get the result of that engineering investment for a fraction of what it costs to develop and build. Number 3 might be the most underrated luxury sedan of the last 2 decades. And the fact that most people still don't talk about it correctly is either frustrating or an opportunity, depending on how you look at it. The Lexus GS 350. Originally priced at around $60,000 in well-equipped form, this was Lexus's answer to the BMW 5 Series and the Mercedes E-Class. It was sporty. It was refined. It struck a balance between driver engagement and luxury comfort that many buyers found difficult to fault. And then the market moved on. The GS never quite captured the brand loyalty that BMW cultivated in its segment. Luxury buyers started gravitating toward SUVs and crossovers. Sales slowed. Production eventually ended, which means used examples are now abundant and affordable. But here's what makes the GS 350 genuinely special in this conversation. It never chased complexity. When manufacturers around it were developing turbocharged 4-cylinder engines in the name of efficiency, engines that, whatever their fuel economy benefits, introduced entirely new categories of potential failure. The GS stayed with a naturally aspirated V6, not a placeholder engine, not a compromise. A refined, high-revving 6-cylinder that has demonstrated extraordinary durability over hundreds of thousands of miles in real-world use. Simple to service, well understood by independent mechanics, and genuinely rewarding to drive in a way that many luxury sedans of that era never quite achieved. Luxury, performance, reliability. Three things that are genuinely difficult to find together in any vehicle, and nearly impossible to find together at the prices used. GS 350 examples are selling for today. The people who discovered this car quietly are not talking about it loudly. And honestly, that's probably working in their favor. Number 2 on this list is going to surprise some people because it comes from a brand that many buyers have written off entirely based on reputation alone. And in this case, that reputation is both partially deserved and significantly outdated. The Jaguar XJ, specifically the X351 generation. When this car was new, it cost close to $90,000. In long wheelbase form, more. And it justified that price with something genuinely rare in the modern luxury sedan market. Genuine visual drama. The XJ's design was striking in a way that almost no other luxury sedan attempted. Where its competitors pursued conservative elegance, the XJ made a statement. Its aluminum body construction reduced weight significantly compared to steel alternatives, which contributed to a driving dynamic that felt lighter and more athletic than the car's size suggested. The interior achieved a sense of occasion that many buyers found compelling. And the later production years, the ones that represent the X351 generation at its most developed, addressed the reliability concerns that had plagued earlier Jaguar products. Now, to be completely clear, the XJ is not a car for someone who wants to ignore maintenance. It rewards attentive ownership and punishes neglect. Owning one requires finding a good independent specialist, someone who knows these cars, and committing to staying ahead of the service intervals rather than reacting to problems after they develop. But for a buyer who understands that reality and is prepared to engage with it, what the XJ offers in return is extraordinary. A design that still generates attention a decade later. A driving experience that feels genuinely special. And a level of automotive theater that you simply cannot access at any other price point. Depreciation has pushed this car into territory that would have seemed impossible when it was new. And for the right buyer, that represents a genuinely rare opportunity. Number 1 on this list is, by any reasonable measure, one of the most compelling used vehicle purchases available in the current market. Not just among luxury vehicles, among all vehicles. The Lexus GX 460. This is a car that enthusiasts who know it well sometimes describe using a word that sounds like hyperbole until you look at the ownership data. They call it indestructible. And while nothing mechanical is literally indestructible, the GX 460 has accumulated an ownership record that makes that description feel less like exaggeration and more like a reasonable summary. The reason starts with the platform. The GX 460 was not developed as a luxury vehicle that happened to have off-road capability. It was built on Toyota's legendary Land Cruiser architecture, a platform developed specifically for extreme durability in demanding conditions and refined over decades of real-world use across some of the harshest environments on the planet. Lexus took that foundation and wrapped it in premium materials, refined the suspension, upgraded the interior, and created something unusual. A body-on-frame SUV that was genuinely comfortable on a daily commute and genuinely capable when conditions demanded more. The V8 engine at the heart of this vehicle shares the same engineering philosophy as the platform. Natural aspiration, high displacement, proven reliability over extraordinary mileage. Owners regularly report crossing the 200,000-mile mark with nothing more than routine maintenance. Some go significantly further. And then depreciation arrived, not because something went wrong, but because the market shifted toward lighter crossovers and more fuel-efficient alternatives. Buyers chased new technology. The GX looked old-fashioned to people who prioritized style over substance, which means today, earlier GX 460 models can be found at prices that represent genuinely staggering value. You're buying Land Cruiser durability, you're buying Lexus refinement, and you're paying a price that, a decade ago, would have bought you a reasonably equipped compact SUV. If there is a single vehicle on this list that represents the clearest illustration of why smart buyers pay attention to depreciation curves rather than showroom prices, this is it. Now, before you start searching listings and planning purchases, there are a few principles that apply to every vehicle on this list, because the opportunity that depreciation creates is real, but so is the risk of buying someone else's problem if you aren't careful. The first thing to do with any used luxury car is to track down the service history. Documented maintenance records are not just helpful. They are the primary tool for understanding how a previous owner treated the vehicle. A luxury car with a complete service history is a fundamentally different risk profile than the same car without one. Never compromise on this. Second, understand that preventive maintenance is the philosophy that makes these cars work as long-term purchases. The owners who experience problems with used luxury vehicles are almost always the ones who deferred service in the hope that nothing would go wrong. The owners who keep these cars for 200,000 miles are almost always the ones who stayed ahead of the maintenance schedule rather than reacting to problems after they developed. Third, for any vehicle that requires specialist knowledge, the Jaguar XJ being the most obvious example on this list, find your independent mechanic before you buy the car, not after. Know what your service relationship looks like before you're committed to the vehicle. A good specialist changes the ownership experience completely. And finally, always have any used luxury car independently inspected before purchase, not by the seller's preferred mechanic, by someone you found independently. The cost of a pre-purchase inspection is genuinely trivial compared to the cost of discovering a serious problem after the transaction is complete. These aren't complicated rules, but following them is the difference between finding one of these cars and actually benefiting from it. So here's where we land. Depreciation has a reputation as something to fear, as a financial penalty attached to car ownership. And for the original buyer, who absorbs the largest portion of that curve, that reputation is justified. But for the second buyer, the one who arrives after the luxury price has collapsed, after the status seekers have moved on to something newer, after the market has decided that a particular model is no longer fashionable, depreciation is something else entirely. It's an invitation. The Lexus LS 460 offers flagship sedan engineering and refinement for a price that would have seemed impossible when it was new. The Acura RLX brings Honda-level reliability to a genuine luxury package that the market dramatically undervalued. The Lexus GS 350 proves that driver engagement and long-term durability don't have to be mutually exclusive. The Jaguar XJ delivers automotive theater and design distinction that almost nothing else in its current price range can approach. And the Lexus GX 460 represents perhaps the most straightforward argument for the entire premise. Land Cruiser durability wrapped in Lexus luxury, available today at prices that make the value almost difficult to articulate. The smartest car in any parking lot is rarely the newest one. It's rarely the one with the biggest payment attached to it. It's often the one that someone else bought at full price, drove through the steepest part of the depreciation curve, and then sold to someone who understood what they were actually getting. That buyer could be you. The only question left is which one of these makes it onto your shortlist. Drop your answer in the comments, because I have a feeling the community here has some strong opinions about that.